Next, former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, telling Joe Biden there are three things he should absolutely keep from President Trump's foreign policy. She laid them out in an opinion piece for the Washington Post, saying he should keep key aspects of Trump's China policy, keep applying pressure on Latin American dictatorships, and encourage the remarkable progress of peace between Arab nations and Israel. Let's bring in former governor of South Carolina and former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley. Those were just three of the things that you thought that a President-elect Biden should continue. Tell me a little bit more about why you think so.
Well, I think, Dana, first of all, it's great to be with you. I think it's really important that we understand that there have been a lot of foreign policy advancements that have happened over the last 4 years. And when you look at whether it is how we've handled China, whether we've taken on, how we've handled the murderous dictators in Venezuela and Cuba, or when you sit there and look at how we're going to handle peace in the Middle East going forward, what my hope is that they're not very quick to discredit and erase the last 4 years, but realize that true good has come from that. And so I think if you take China, for example, China is absolutely a foreign policy threat. And President Trump recognized that. He recognized that by putting sanctions on them on their human rights abuses. He recognized that by calling out their intellectual property stealings. He recognized that in the fact that he really had to hold them accountable, whether it was on the virus or whether it was on anything else they were doing. And he built up our military and our Space Force to combat China. And we have to acknowledge them for exactly the abuser that they are and what they want to do to America. It's all the more reason why the Hunter Biden stuff has become a little bit concerning, is because you're looking at a direct conflict of interest. And the American people heard Joe Biden say that he didn't think China was competition for us and that much of a threat several months ago. Now we see that he and his family have had business dealings with China. We really need to make sure that China doesn't feel like they're going to get a pass here with Biden, and that they understand that we're going to be as strong and as tough as we've been this past 4 years.
Take me back to your experience as United Nations ambassador and what you know about the proliferation of what the Chinese have been trying to do in terms of spying across America. We know now about the attempts in order to influence Eric Swalwell when he was just a city councilman and moving on up. And then that was revealed in 2015 when he was a member of Congress and put on the Intel Committee. But also the attempts, I guess, any concerns you might have about influence that they think they might have with an incoming administration.
Well, China has been doing this for years. I can tell you my first year at the United Nations, and one of the directives I gave to my immediate direct staff is that they were not to associate with anybody but themselves, because we knew how it was the spy capital of the world, and we knew exactly what China was doing. They had a satellite that went directly into my office that we had to shield from them hearing, seeing everything that we were doing. And so I think, the idea that China has been spying, that's no secret to anyone who has been in government or has dealt with the intelligence community to know they've been doing this, and they've been doing it aggressively. What I saw the first year is China was very timid in their communication. They would only have conversations behind closed doors. They wanted to keep things civil. Once President Xi removed term limits for himself and basically made himself king, they became much more aggressive. They became aggressive in knowing what everyone in the world was doing. They became aggressive in their strategy of how they were going to get information and continue to steal, whether it was through spying, through universities, through stealing property. And they became much more conscious of trying to infiltrate within the United Nations organization to head up specific agencies. So what the Biden team needs to understand is they already feel like they have an in with Hunter Biden. Joe Biden almost has to go so far the other way to show China that he's not going to allow anything to get in the way. He has to expand on what President Trump has already done. And he's really got to show to the entire world what his stance is going to be on China. And it's not something he can be soft about, and it's not something that he can show any signs of weakness with.
So you're not only a foreign policy expert after all of the work that you did at the United Nations, you care deeply about domestic politics here as well. And this weekend, you'll be campaigning in Georgia with Kelly Loeffler. She had some strong words yesterday for the consequences of what might happen if she were to lose this race. Listen.
If we don't vote, we could see the election of America's first Marxist senator in this country right here in Georgia, and that's why we're the firewall.
How do you see the stakes of these two Senate runoffs?
Well, we are going to Georgia on Sunday. We're going to be campaigning across the state, and we're looking forward to a great time with the people of Georgia. But Kelly is absolutely right. There is a lot at stake in Georgia, and there's a lot at stake in the country. And, just talking about the foreign policy that we talked about, we have to have a Senate that's going to hold Biden and his allies accountable on how they deal with China. We have to have a strong Senate so that if he looks to jump back into the Iran deal, there's some guardrails there that say you can't just go back to the way it was. We have to have a strong Senate that's going to make sure not only are we strong on foreign policy, but is also going to make sure that we don't turn over the budget committee to Bernie Sanders or allow AOC to get away with what she says. If they win the Senate, they will have full power to negotiate. So a lot at stake. We look forward to being in Georgia. It's going to be a good time, and we have to win these races.
Let me ask you just one last question. So in South Carolina, when you were governor and that horrible church shooting happened there in Charleston, and you took a leadership position about removing the Confederate flag from the Capitol. And so you're experienced in trying to bring people together. The nation feels quite polarized. Many people very disappointed, angry about this election. Going forward, any thoughts about how we can all pull together and how important it is that we do?
It's really important that we pull together as a country, because if we don't, the rest of the world sees us as distracted. And all of a sudden, there's a bigger target on America's back. And the way to do that is, first of all, acknowledge the accomplishments of President Trump. I mean, I think our foreign policy is stronger than it was 4 years ago. We made a lot of strides in domestic policy. You look at the fact that we have a vaccine in record time that is safe and ready for people to use. And, you look at all of the progress that we've made. And what we want to know, we want to remember from the Republican Party standpoint is we don't want to go back to the days before President Trump. We want to build on those wins and build on those strengths. In terms of the Democratic Party that is becoming more and more progressive and going further to the left, they're going to have to reconcile that with themselves, how they go and sell defunding the police, how they go and sell being friends with socialist Venezuela and communist Cuba and thinking that China's not a big deal. They're going to get further to the left. But as parties, we're going to always debate. As American people, what we have to remember is we all agree on 90% of things. We agree on where we want to go, that we want our children to have more opportunities, that we want a safer country, that we want to continue to be a country that realizes we're a work in progress and we have more we need to do. We just have different ways of getting there. And so I hope during this season and as we go into 2021, we remember all of us are mothers and daughters and sisters and people who are patriots that really do want to see a stronger and better America. And we can get there, but we have to be willing to listen. We have to be willing to commit to action that will further strengthen America. And we have to understand that we're better together than we will ever be divided.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you. Nikki Haley, thanks for being on the show today.
Merry Christmas, Dana.